Hey good people, Batavia here. We made it to the other side. So we have a few things to cover, including what the garden looks like after our first freeze. Well, we had a frost, then a few days of freezing temps. And then we'll also take a look at what's behind me. We had a really good pre-freeze final harvest. All right, before we dig in, big thank yous to those who like, watch, comment, share, and subscribe to Be Better Garden. I appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed already, consider it. There's a button below. And let's go ahead and dig in. So day 1, we got a frost. Day 2, 3, and 4, we got freezing temps overnight, early mornings. And then day 5, we had some really nice temps, highs in the 50s, lows in the 40s. And so these plants started to bounce back. This is day 6, if you will, and we got kind of a light frost last night. You can see just really light, more like a dew and just a tinge of frost. But my collards are bouncing back. The kale has absolutely been unfazed. That's a lacinato kale / dinosaur kale. And this is the collard green plant. I was picking off those worms last time. So really pleased with the brassicas and their bounce back ability. We'll continue to get freezing temps. I mean, fall is here. I'm in Chicago, zone 6A. And so these plants I'll just be harvesting off of here and there. The kale specifically, but probably the collards I'll do more of a bigger harvest. So the light in here isn't good, but it's worth the share. So this is one of the jalapeno plants. And since I was harvesting that last day before the frost, in the rain basically, I brought some of these containers, the lighter ones, inside to pick the peppers off of. And so I've left these in the garage. And it's very tempting to try to overwinter. Perhaps the jalapeno. This is the habanada, which I just didn't even get around to picking the peppers. And you can see I have that, just a regular old towel on. And this looks pretty good still. So we won't leave these here for much longer. It's just been a busy week managing through all of the things that came out of the garden. We'll take a look at the plants when they were covered. So it was, after we had cleared freezing temps those few days, I took the blankets, well, it was actually old bath towels off of the bed, and this is just a couple of days later. Again, we've had some mild temps, all things considered. So you could see the chart has bounced back. So now, because vegetables in general are a little bit more scarce in the garden, you'll see me harvesting more frequently for some of these goodies. Oh, I forgot to show the oregano. So I planted this late in the season a few years ago. This is before I realized that it could be perennial in my area. And I am just super pleased. So again, I ran out of time that day. Otherwise, the day before the frost, otherwise I would have done a big harvest, given these plants a haircut. But again, they do just okay when it comes to these colder temps. So it gives me a little bit more time to manage it. I'm always preparing myself for animals surprising me up here when I walk up here. So our favorite bed of the year, at least one of them. Of course, all of the peppers, the plants have died. I keep on forgetting to harvest this pepper. I think this is, like in this case, since it's probably gone through freezing. Well, it definitely has gone through freezing. I'll cut up and eat of that one real quick. I won't take any time to see like if it's going to show any signs of damage. Lettuce. I'm pretty sure this is the marvel of 4 season. My intention was to transplant this to a couple of different spaces in the garden. Maybe even take some indoors. This is Paris Island romaine. And I didn't get around to it. And now the question is, will I get around to it? So I'll show you what this looked like with the cover. And this is basically, some makeshift cover. This is a little bit of row cover from the backyard, just like some old material I had in the garage. So the internet says that you can get down to 28 degrees Fahrenheit for celery without it being damaged. And we definitely got really close, if not hovering around that for a few nights, early mornings. So super pleased. Again, the cover was for some additional protection just in case. Kale was not covered. I'm letting it do what it's going to do. And then our green stalk, let's take a look at it a couple of days ago, get a better look, and you can see kind of what the plants looked like immediately after taking the cover off after those freezing temps. 2 layers of protection. This is the frost protection from green stalk, and then I had some spare row cover here, like there was never any freezing weather. Nice. This is the 5-tier, the original planter, and the top tier, which you'll see in just a couple of moments, had the basil. And so I knew that basil it's not going to withstand the cold, and there's no sense in me trying to push the limit even with cover. So that made its way indoors. But everything else looks super, super good. I'm just at this point trying to buy myself some more time as I work with these things. So super pleased that I was able to get all of these things out of the garden before the frost and then our ultimate freeze this past week. So this is all from the very end of October. I'm filming now at the beginning of November, but it was a chore, not because of just the volume, but more specifically because I waited until kind of the frost eve, and we had rain all of that evening. And so I spent more time than I would have if it was dry, but I spent about 3 hours pulling vegetables off the vine, and it was definitely a chore. I know it wouldn't have taken me that long had it been dry, and that's one of the reasons why I couldn't get anything filmed that day, but I wanted to make sure to come back around and share this with you all before I start really working with these things. So, quick roundabout. Basil, this is that top tier of the green stalk. So I planted this basil out back at the end of August, early September. This is transplanted in, and this is still in the soil. So this actually came inside because I know that basil just is tender, plainly put. And all in all, I've probably seen a couple of gnats, but that first night I did see a grasshopper, and I kindly escorted it back outside. But other than that, no real problems when it comes to bugs, because I basically have this outdoor soil sitting in, my living room for a number of days. And then I have basil here and here. We cut this basil out of the Vego garden bed in the backyard that's up against the garage. And so it has been sitting in water. The stems themselves are sitting in water, and it is reaching its kind of final days. I need to work with it really today once I get done with this. Let's see, we have the cabbage that we have been monitoring for what seems like months. It was transplanted in along with a few other transplants back at the middle of August, and I was holding out on this because I know this is going to be the last cabbage of the season, so I wanted to make sure that I was able to store this in the crisper. This is also sitting in water. It has its root. I pulled it up straight from the root here, so it's sitting in water as well. And so all in all, like, this isn't a long-term solution, but all in all, a few days, this is okay. But this is going to go into the crisper once I clean up some of these leaves. You saw the celery that did just fine, but just in case it didn't, I pulled a few stalks out, and it's also sitting in water. So we have mostly green tomatoes, and they're just in this basket for kind of this display. These will be lined up on probably the dining room table. I have some on top that have already started to turn colors. So this is one of the pineapples, and it's starting to ripen up. And then I have almost exclusively pineapples. There are a couple of brandywines in here. So these were the ripe tomatoes I pulled off the vine. And so on this side, these are ones that are ripe. I should be using in the next few days. At this point, these in this container here, I need to go in the house and cut these like now before they start to really turn. And these are more ripe tomatoes that should be used in the next couple of days, but they're smaller varieties. And then these are more of the, primarily again, the pineapple that are ripening, and so I probably have another week or so before I really need to get to use these. So all of these will go on the dining room table so I can keep a close eye. I'll be checking them day to day. I will let these ripen. For instance, depending on what I make with kind of the ones I need to cut into today, I may take some of these with me to fill out a recipe. This probably is going to be like one last batch of salsa from the garden. So these are my sweet peppers, larger in size. So there's California Wonder, bell pepper, and then there's a California Golden, I think it's California Golden Wonder. So I have my green ones on the bottom, and then anything that is already ripened, like fully mature, is on top. So I have a few red ones on top. I also have just a couple of the Triple Delight peppers. Those were supposed to turn from green to both red and yellow on the same plant. I only saw the red ones, but they were huge. So that's definitely something that's going into the garden. So for peppers, they will be diced and sliced and frozen. Depending on what they look like, once I really get a good look, I may end up stuffing a few and then enjoying, like, you know, for dinner or lunch, but then freezing a couple of those. Really, really convenient over the course of the season to be able to pull those out of the freezer. I've been playing around with cooking them in the oven from frozen versus thawing them. In front is kind of the last of the golden zucchini and then some melons. Not optimistic about them, but there is still a success story for the season. So there was one of the honeydew melons that I had been basically babying the entire season, hoping that it would actually ripen. As far as I know, I've mentioned this before, I believe honeydew does not ripen off of the vine, so your only chance is to let it ripen on the vine. So I cut it, maybe, I don't know, a week, 10 days probably back, and it was sweet. Surprisingly so. Now, it wasn't as sweet as the sweetest melon I've ever had in my garden, which was a honeydew. So that's the inside. I'm thinking, well, you know what? I'm just going to taste it. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it's... This is good stuff. Yeah, I'm like literally like teary-eyed. I know, I can't help myself. Super good. I'll decide next year what I want to do when it comes to melons. I think cantaloupe really did well this year for me, so I'll definitely be growing those. I probably shouldn't say definitely. I will very likely be growing those. But the other melons that get larger, I just don't know. So we'll see. And then, let's see, I think I have a couple of cucumbers down there. So here we have some of the last hot peppers, and then some of the smaller sweet peppers like shishitos, and then there's some banana peppers there. So we will mix some of these up in some of the recipes that we'll be making over the next several weeks. And then we have sweet potatoes. So I'm pretty sure the video prior to this one was the sweet potato harvest. I gave some clips of that, and then the ultimate harvest. Ended up with 18.5 pounds, and believe you me, just like my white potatoes, I am chasing the big harvest because these are vegetables that keep. You know, I put them in the basement, I can continue to enjoy them for months. And that is one of my ultimate goals. I love eating these things fresh, but I want something that months after the garden has been put to bed, I'm still able to enjoy. So this year, I didn't look at my notes to see how many pounds I grew in previous years, but I'm thinking this is a high. And next year, I'm formulating the plan when it comes to how much space, basically, I want to dedicate to sweet potatoes. That's one of the pieces I think I missed this year. I was still kind of growing in small spaces, but all in all, I had some large potatoes come out and then some that are kind of just regular size, but pleased all the same. All right. I did mention for the green tomatoes, some sliced green tomatoes. I may try again the pickled sliced green tomatoes with the goal of doing fried green tomatoes later. The last time I tried it, they were far too vinegary for my taste. The texture was okay. I mean, it's not going to be as firm as it is when I'm cutting it today, but I may give that a try again. And then we'll see, keep an eye on if they're ripening without any issues of molding or spoiling. We'll let these ripen because this could take me well into November for fresh tomatoes, right? I think the latest I've ever had a tomato that was pulled off of the vine before the frost and ripened inside was December 1st, which is my birthday. So that was a real treat. All right, I think that covers it. Yeah? All right. Thanks so much for spending some time with me. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. This video will be published a couple of weeks after I'm filming. But if you still have suggestions on something you've seen here and some ideas of how to use it, I am all ears. I still will take it if I still have the produce intact. I'll definitely think about giving it a try, or I'll add it to my list for next year. So I appreciate your feedback. All right, that'll do it. See you all in the next one.